welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura Fawks Lapole.
And I'm the ever-elusive manager, Kim Baker.
Yay,
and today,
Kim!
We're going to be talking about animals of the occult.
Ooh, spooky.
Spooky!
No, I'm really excited for this.
I am too. I learned so much while I was researching for it.
Yeah. Well, I guess before we get into the meat of our talk, do we want to do nature news?
Yeah, absolutely.
What you got?
All right. I have what I think is the most hilarious story of the year.
Oh,
it's from the New York Times, and I'm just going to read you the headline first, because I think that that'll give you a really good vibe. When you go to the loo, a bat might go boo.
Yes, I saw this headline, but I didn't read it.
It is. You do yourself a favor, read it sometime over the weekend, because it is just. I laughed so hard out loud. I scared my dog.
Oh my gosh! I think I saw the picture for it. There's like a diagram, right?
There is. There's a diagram. There's some really cute bat photos. So the second headline says, among roosting bats in parts of Africa, the inside of a drop toilet can be a lovely place to hang. So it's bats and toilets, y'all. So according to a paper published by Dr. Legia Dorward and colleagues in September in the African Journal of Ecology, bats have found space under certain pit toilets in Tanzania to be cozy.
I guess it'd be warm. It'd be warm and there'd be bugs.
Yes. So apparently the bats enjoy the warm air. The overhead concrete slab keeps predators away and, humans from falling in. And they don't mind people doing their business overhead. So Dr. Dorward realized there wasn't much of any scientific literature on toilet bats. So he took it upon himself to make that contribution to the greater good.
Good for him.
Yeah. And I know that you and Katy have said this before, but man, you can really research anything.
Yeah. Well, right. He's like, I'm going to dive into human toilets.
Yeah. So he surveyed the pit toilets around camp for bats. And again, you have to read the article because there's this whole bit about how he basically maneuvered his camera into the pit toilet. Tried not to drop it to take pictures of these bats. It's too much.
I'm sure I would love to have seen everybody else in camp's face, that he was with, because this just happened. He was like, oh, I'll just start looking at this. And everyone else was probably like, what are you doing?
What? Why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I mean, it seems like it was a fairly normal occurrence. For people in this area that were using them. They weren't surprised by this concept. So he just kind of, quantified some data. Going to Girl Scout camp and stuff and using outhouses and things like that. You're always looking out for spiders. I can't imagine the risk of a bat coming up the toilet. Oh yeah. So apparently 6 out of 7 of these pit toilets had some roosting bats in them. And I saved some notable quotes that I'm hoping that will just spark joy for you, like they did for me. This Dr. Dorward has said, I've had the soft, leathery caress of a bat's wing against my buttocks while having a poo. Yes!
Stop. Oh my gosh.
That's a direct quote. They put it in the New York Times.
The soft, leathery what?
Caress.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is such a vivid image and such good, it's a great description.
But it gets better. So there was another research fellow named Amy Dickman who says, suddenly you would feel one charge upwards and launch itself between your legs.
No.
Then you have this furry animal just flying into your behind.
I can't imagine, traumatic. And I guess if you live there, you're used to it, but I can't imagine your first experience with such a thing as an outsider.
No,
And if
I
nobody
laughed
like
so hard.
if it was such a normal occurrence, nobody might even warn you. Like you just go to Africa and you go to the bathroom and this happens and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, toilet bats."
Yeah,
and you're
there's
like,
a bunch of toilet bats here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like low-key hazing
Yeah.
of new researchers.
Oh yeah, the old bat on the butt.
Just right. Oh, the old butt bat.
That is the most absurd thing. And also so fun, like, man, also from the bat's point of view, like, I guess their echolocation isn't working quite up to par.
Right.
If they're going to run into a
maybe
butt.
they're just confused from, the doing their business bit.
Yeah.
Just really throw something off.
Just trying to avoid things that are falling and just end up running into a butt.
Right.
They're probably
that's a bad day for a bat.
Yeah. They're probably like, this is gross.
Yeah. This is not a cave.
This isn't like, and it would be like, how would a bat describe this? The soft pink, I don't even know.
The soft pink undercarriage of the large species.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my nature news. I hope it brought you joy.
It did. I'll never forget it. And now I'm going to tell everybody. It's such also a perfect one for like what we're talking about today with like
absolutely
animals and like Halloween. Man, it's perfect.
Well, you gotta kick it off with bats.
So boring. So boring compared to yours. Mine is from Science Daily, and its title is Plankton Head Polewards. So the other reason I chose this is because it was a really cute image for me. I'm just imagining little plankton with little like luggage, and they're all going towards the poles in the ocean.
They just pack their bags.
Yeah, they're like, I'm out of here. It's too hot. So in the ocean, there's zooplankton. Well, there's zooplankton, which is the like animal type, and there's phytoplankton, which is the plant type. So phytoplankton are food for zooplankton. Zooplankton's food for a lot of animals that live in the ocean, like even blue whales. They're eating the plankton.
Yeah.
So as the ocean gets warmer, and they've been seeing this since the 50s, the plankton are moving out of the tropics and towards the poles because it's just a little bit too hot for them in the tropics now. So it's on the face of it, they were like, well, this, might look a little bit positive because phytoplankton like make oxygen and things like that. And so there's going to be more and more phytoplankton species and less zooplankton species. But even though it might make more oxygen, it's not fixing the carbon in the ocean like it should. And it's just an unknown. This has never happened before. And so they're not sure how marine communities are going to handle it.
I was going to say, like, isn't this going to have some sort of effect on, like, food chain stuff?
Yes. Apparently at the end of the article, they mentioned the fact that, like, larger zooplankton, like jellyfish, are migrating towards the poles, too. And apparently a whole giant thing of jellyfish came up towards, like, Ireland and ate decimated their salmon population.
Interesting.
So, yeah. It's definitely gonna change. Things are constantly shifting in the ocean, but it's definitely gonna change some stuff.
Right. Well, that'll be interesting to keep an eye on over time, I think.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, do you want to like let people know, I guess, before we get started, we said we're going to talk about animals dealing with the occult. Well, what even is the occult?
Well, that's a great question, because I had to Google that. I know I told you that I thought occult and a cult were the same thing. Spoiler alert, they're not. So the occult, in kind of the broadest sense, is a set of like supernatural beliefs and practices that kind of fall outside the scope of what we consider to be religion and science. So it includes things like mysticism, spirituality, and magic. So it's kind of like a melding of a lot of concepts into something that's a little otherworldly. And, something else that I wanted to point out, that this isn't all like witches with pointy hats on broomsticks.
Yeah.
So some of these concepts and ideas are still practiced today and part of people's cultures. So, be kind and thoughtful as you're listening, but also if something piques your interest, look it up. I found a lot of interesting information that, didn't even apply to what I'm talking about today.
Yeah.
So,
and I found out, the otherness of the occult is often used as an excuse for like ostracizing certain peoples and things like that. And there's like a whole nother level to the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, keep an open mind. And I think if it's all right with you, I'll hop right into my first animal of the occult.
Let's do it.
Wonderful. So, first, I want to talk about magpies.
Yes. I was hoping that like you and like me didn't choose just super common like black bats, black cats, and
I might get a little more common, but I promise it's a good spin. But magpies are excellent. I didn't know a lot about them going into this, but they popped up in a lot of places in relation to the occult, in relation to witchcraft. And so everywhere that magpies are found, and they have a pretty broad range, and I'll get more into that later, they're associated with witches, witchcraft, bad omens, evil, and death. And you might know them best from, there's a children's nursery rhyme that's titled One for Sorrow.
And, I don't know this, I don't think.
So it's a little bit older. I wrote it down because I was like, this is spooky. The more modern version is called 1 for Sorrow, 2 for Joy, 3 for Girl, 4 for a Boy, 5 for Silver, 6 for Gold, 7 for a Secret Never to be Told. And the idea is that the number of magpies that you see and that you're counting determines your fate or your luck.
Gotcha.
And older versions of this rhyme have other lyrics and considerably more sorrow and death.
I was going to say.
Right. So the modern version, a lot more luck going your way. And I really got into researching this when I learned about how the Slavic people viewed magpies and witches.
Cool.
So I'm going to mostly focus on that. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm Polish. And I like learning about this stuff. I think it's really cool. So magpies are the preferred shapeshift of Slavic witches.
That's awesome.
Which is so cool.
And actually makes a lot of sense. Sorry, I was just reading a book recently by a German author, Cornelia Funke. She wrote like Inkheart and stuff. And one of the ladies in there shapeshifts into a magpie and she's like evil. And that like, so German, Slavic, probably.
Yeah, German, Slavic. So like Ukrainian, Russian, we're going to get into the Russians a little bit too.
Cool.
But they all think magpies have some associated. Yeah. A lot of witches. So the Southern Slavs, Veshtika is a wise woman and an evil witch that steals human hearts with her magic from people while they sleep.
Whoa. And
as well as babies from their mother's wombs.
Oh my gosh.
So sorry. That it's something. And then the Eastern Slavs, they say that seeing a magpie near a place where a woman gives birth is a bad omen. The magpie may take the child's soul at the moment of birth, and the baby will die.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you were a mom like who had just given birth and you see a magpie, you'd be freaking out.
I would not be pleased.
Yeah.
I would like, straight get up and fight that magpie.
Yeah.
Don't steal my baby's soul.
Yeah.
And an evil witch in northern Russia could give a young girl a drink made of chicory root, and the girl would start rattling like a magpie. And for those of you who don't know, magpies have a certain call that really sounds like a shrill rattle that is used to like ward off predators, and also just to be a nuisance to people, from what I understand. The Russian name for witch is Soroka Vechchitsa. Sorry, I don't speak Russian. But it literally means magpie witch.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, their name for witch, they're like, listen, y'all are too close together.
Poor magpies.
And apparently, Ivan the Terrible, who was the first Tsar of Russia, he gathered all the witches he could find to burn them at the stake, as you do. Of course.
Yeah.
But they were like, hell no. And they transformed into magpies and flew away. So the running like story or tale that they say is that there are no more witches in Moscow because they all flew off and they will not return.
That makes sense. I would not either.
Right. So if you want to live in Russia, go to Moscow. It's witch free.
I hope that's on their sign outside the city.
Witch free since like
Welcome to
1583 or whenever Ivan the Terrible was around.
Yeah.
Another Russian legend suggests that murdered witches reincarnate as magpies.
Probably to have it out for people.
Right. And so, like, let's pause here because I love the idea of reincarnation. And this really just adds fuel to my fire.
Yeah.
If you're telling me that witches are coming back and they're just, annoying people, pestering people, stealing souls.
Yeah.
As magpies. So, although they have bird bodies, they keep their witch souls. And because of that, you never know which magpie is a witch magpie. So, you need to be kind to all of them. Otherwise, they might cast a spell on you.
Yep. I have something similar with one of my animals.
I feel like it might be a little bit of a common thing. Like, be nice to animals or they're going to cast a spell on you.
Yeah. You never know, man.
And, so my last bit of occult trivia. In case you run into a magpie, here's how to ward off bad luck.
Ooh.
Specifically from solitary ones. They
Okay.
seem to maybe cast the most spells, and according to the rhyme, not a very good combo. So you can salute politely, say hello, and ask about its magpie wife or family.
What? So they're assuming it's a dude magpie witch.
Yeah, they're always assuming it's a dude magpie, which makes no sense to me.
Right.
But the phrase is like, "Hi, Mr. Magpie, how's the wife?" Or "How's the brother?" So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. But okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
You can doff your hat, spit 3 times over your shoulder, blink rapidly to fool yourself into thinking you've seen 2 magpies. Which I mean, just at that point, spit over your shoulder.
Yeah. Blink rapidly.
And then flap your arms like wings and call loudly to mimic the magpie's missing mate. And I was like, wow, this is a lot of great information to make sure I don't get bad luck. Thank you.
Yeah. And that I would love to see, like, someone seeing a magpie. And actually, like, just cover all your bases, just go through the repertoire. Like,
just
all
do
of them.
one after the other.
Yeah.
Make sure you're always wearing a hat so you can just
doff it.
Do a nice tip. And then just run around flapping your wings.
Everyone would be like, anyone here with, sorry, 1 second, I just got to make sure I don't get cursed, and then you just go through all of this.
Just hold on. And then they're going to take you to, like, the stockyard, because I'm also assuming that we don't live in modern times, and they're just going to put you out. Be like, this person's crazy and talks to magpies, so a witch.
Right, that's then the next step. Then you're just a witch, because you're talking to the magpie.
Absolutely. So, and even though I'm not necessarily all on board for magpie witches, I do think that they're incredibly cool animals. So a little bit about them. The Latin name for them is pica pica, which I thought was pika pika and got real excited about.
Pika pika.
But I tried 3 different here's how you say this word sites. And I was like, it is pica. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. That's okay. So it's a corvid. It's related to crows, ravens, and jays, which is my favorite bird family currently. I have shifted from birds of prey into corvids because corvids are so cool. Smart.
Yeah.
It has it's black and white. It has a long tail. It has some cool iridescent blue happening on its wings, especially the Eurasian magpie. They're really pretty. And like I said before, they can be found all over the world, in the Americas, parts of Africa, Europe, and Asia. The Eurasian magpie is found from Spain to the eastern edge of Russia.
Wow. The whole thing. Yeah.
Whole thing. And they're scavengers, which kind of makes sense. They have such a large range. They'll eat literally anything. Fruits, grains, inverts, carrion. And they have been known to raid bird nests and steal kills from hunters and predators like coyotes.
Wow.
Yeah. They're a cool bird, man.
Yeah.
They're often monogamous, which, you know, I've been told that a lot of birds, it's like Days of Our Lives, soap opera-like. So
Yeah.
that's a change of pace. And the best part about them really is that they're wicked, smart. Their brain to body mass is equal to most great apes and cetaceans.
Whoa.
Which, like, I forgot what cetaceans were. It's porpoises, dolphins, and whales. Like, and they have a similar size. You're going to have to correct me on this. Nidopallium? I don't know. It's part of the brain. It's used for, like, some executive function stuff and, like, higher level cognitive tasks.
Oh, cool.
And it's the same size as great apes.
Whoa.
Relatively. Yeah. They've demonstrated self-awareness on mirror tests, which I regularly freak myself out after dyeing my hair and looking in the mirror. So I'm fairly certain magpies may be more self-aware than me. They imitate humans. They have an amazing memory, like where they've stored food. They also cut their food up in appropriately sized portions for their young.
What?
Yes.
That's cool.
I read it like 3 times. I'm like, there's no way. That's so adorable.
Yeah, they just bust out their tiny little knife and fork.
Right. I just like
cut it up. Yeah.
Cut it up. And the most interesting thing I learned is that they have very elaborate grieving rituals. When one magpie discovers another dead magpie, it begins calling loudly to attract other magpies. So then there's a gathering of screaming magpies that up to 40 birds have been observed at one of these.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And they start screaming. They scream for 10 to 15 minutes, and then they disperse and fly off silently.
So they just had a wake.
Like
a mini wake.
A mini wake for their dead bird friend.
That's so cool.
They're so fascinating.
Yeah. That's actually better probably than a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people see people hurt and, like, don't do anything. And, like, meanwhile, these birds are like, hurry up and come here. We got to sing about them for a couple seconds.
Right. Excuse me. We have to scream our magpie call for a few minutes, and then we're going to go.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. Any kind of grieving ritual is also, again, just shows, like, a whole nother level of self-awareness.
Right. Absolutely. And to be able to, you know,
like, recognize that they're dead and not coming back.
Right. To understand that, like, permanent thing, right? And then to be able to, like, group, have an emotion about it, whatever that looks like to the particular animal, I think is really, really cool.
So cool.
So, that's the magpie, everybody.
Wow. No, that was a good one to start with, for sure. Not just like the old crow.
Yeah, right? I know. I really elevated from the old crow.
Well, mine, I'm going to start, I want to say tamer. Yeah, I'm going to start with, like, the little bit less hated one. And so I wanted to learn more as we did this episode. So I was looking up, like, the occult in other countries, kind of like you were talking about the Slavic people. Mm-hmm. So I was like, all right, what about, you know, Asian different practices of witchcraft and stuff. So I stumbled upon Japan. And there are 2 major types of, like, witches and their familiars. There's the snake witches and there's the fox witches. So I wanted to focus on the fox witches because foxes, I feel like, aren't usually associated with witchcraft here in America.
I mean, agree. Yeah.
People see them, like, sneaky and stuff, but not
cunning.
Like,
right.
Yeah. So, foxes, or the Japanese word for them is kitsune, are extremely prevalent in Japanese folklore and are viewed, like, from one end of the spectrum to the other. So they can be anywhere from divine to demonic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this species, like, foxes are both loved and hated. And I'm just going to talk about, like, the darker side, but there is so much. Like, it could have just been an episode on foxes.
Which, you know, I feel like for you wouldn't be a bad thing.
Yeah. And I watch a lot of anime, so a lot of this was like, oh, that's where that story came from. Which is cool.
Yeah.
But, so anyway, fox users in Japan are kitsune sukai, or fox users. So there's a couple of ways that this can happen. So a familiar is, for those of you not familiar with the term, is usually in witchcraft, you'll have something that either gives you magical power or assists you with your magical power. And so that's what I'm talking about. So the fox familiar can attach itself to one person or a family. So to become a Kitsune Tsukai, you first have to, well, at least in this ancient book, they tell you how to do it. It says to become a Kitsune Tsukai, you first have to find a pregnant female fox, feed her and tame her. And then once she has her babies, she will ask you to name one as thanks. And now it's under your control. So,
I'm sorry. Wait, so you're telling me find a pregnant fox. First of all, difficult for me.
Right. Are you pregnant?
Excuse me, can I rub your belly real quick?
Yeah.
Then gain her trust. Then you might get to name a baby.
Yeah. But if you do, then great. For the most part, at least great for you. But this is one of those things where once you make this pact, it taints your entire family line. So you're
tall order.
So your children's children will be stuck with this fox. And you can't just make it go away. I think that there might be some sort, like you can go to a priest and get it like exorcised, kind of. Okay. But other than that, you've made this pact and now your whole family is like
now
this.
Your entire bloodline is connected to this fox.
Yes.
Is the fox now immortal?
I think so. So that's what I was confusing about this, right? Because if you have to find a pregnant female fox, well, then that fox is obviously real.
Right. That's a mortal fox. It's doing mortal things.
Right. Unless there's a lot of thought that, like, it seems like in the literature that, like, all foxes are shapeshifters. All foxes have some element of, so even though they're a fox right now, they're not always a fox.
I see.
Kind of thing.
I see. Okay. All right. I buy it. Let's go.
So once your family line is tainted, you are now known. You're now known as Tsukimono Suji, which are hereditary witches. So then the kitsune, the fox, is passed down matrilinearly. Wow, that's a hard word to say. So from mother to daughter.
Mother to daughter.
Yeah. So these families are both respected and feared, as you can imagine.
Right.
Do not piss off one of these witch families.
No.
But the sad thing is it's very hard for the women to find husbands because they don't want to be married to a witch family.
Because they don't want to continue a tainted bloodline?
Yeah. And unfortunately, discrimination, like actual legal discrimination against these families lasted until the 1960s when some laws were made.
No way.
Yes.
The 60s?
The 60s.
Wow.
Yeah. So this was very real and prevalent in the culture. So a little bit about the kitsune. So kitsune is just the word for fox. And that could be either a real fox or a divine fox or a demon fox.
Sure.
So the kitsune can become invisible. It can shapeshift. It can retrieve objects. It can deceive enemies. But the most feared thing that it can do is that it can possess another human being. So like you can send your fox into somebody to possess them. And a fox spirit that possesses others is known as a tsukimono. And there's lots of different types of those, like of other animals and things. But it's very much like the Western version of demonic possession. So it doesn't really make you necessarily act like a fox.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they're, like scientists are thinking this is just our way of people talking about like epilepsy and, things like that. So someone observing this wrote that this is a quote from it. Strange is the madness of those into whom demon foxes enter. Sometimes they run naked shouting through the streets. Sometimes they lie down and froth the mouth and yelp as a fox yelps. And on some parts of the body of the possessed, a moving lump appears under the skin which seems to have a life of its own. Prick it with a needle and it glides instantly to another place. By no grasp can it be so tightly compressed by a strong hand that it will not slip from the fingers. Possessed folk are also said to speak and write languages of which they were totally ignorant prior to possession. They eat only what foxes are believed to like, and they eat a great deal. And apparently, kitsune are known for being incredible lovers. So
Hell
there's also
yeah.
that. So demonical possession is frequently said to be due to the evil influence of foxes.
Interesting.
So you might be doing some really crazy stuff. Nobody wants to be possessed by a fox.
Right, yeah. But you might be a good lover.
Yeah, yeah. And the sufferer is usually a woman from a poorer class. Shocker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It said, this doctor who was observing, like, the culture said that a fox usually enters a woman either through the breast or between the fingernails. And that the fox
that is not where I thought you were going with that.
Right? Like, what?
I mean, we just talked about butt bat, so I really, I was in a different spot. Yeah. In between the fingernails?
Or breast foxes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
the old breast fox.
And that the fox lives a separate life of its own, frequently speaking in a totally different voice from a human. So that would be terrifying to see.
Yeah.
But again, just like if you've ever seen a demon possession movie, it's kind of the same thing.
Right.
So that's kind of the thought of the kitsune as far as the occult side, the negative occult side.
Right.
But those witch families are known to be very wealthy because the fox can get them pretty much whatever they want. So
that's true. I mean, yeah. So you might have, downside. You might,
it'll be hard to find a husband.
Right. Hard to find a husband. You've been discriminated against for quite a long time.
Yes.
But you could be rich.
Right. Rich and powerful. So yeah,
Right.
It's just what's your priorities in life?
Right. Absolutely.
So, but if you're interested in fox, seriously, that is just like the barest scratch of the surface of things. There's also all the positive things about foxes. So that's the occult. Why are they awesome and, kind of misunderstood? Foxes, there are two, I didn't know I was trying to think to myself, what species of fox even lives in Japan? It's the red fox. I didn't know that.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So apparently the red fox has the largest range of any animal in the order Carnivora. They're in the entire northern hemisphere. Like, you can find a red fox anywhere in the northern hemisphere. And in Japan, it's specifically the Hokkaido fox and the Japanese red fox, which are subspecies.
Okay, I was going to ask. I was like, how do the red foxes make it to Japan? But it's a subspecies, so...
Yeah, no idea. Probably their ancestors either swam or when it was connected I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
There's a Fox Island in Japan, like one of the little tiny islands.
That.
I really want to go.
Yes.
So besides
Please help us go to Fox Island.
Yes, send us things.
Join our Patreon today. Take us to Fox Island.
We'll take videos. So besides being super freaking cute, there are 12 species of foxes. They are related to dogs, but they're actually a lot like cats, which I think is what I really love about foxes is they're like the perfect medium. So,
right.
They're related to dogs and they're carnivores, but like a cat, they're solitary, active at dawn and dusk, have vertical pupils, spines on their tongue, and the gray fox even has retractable claws and sleeps in trees.
Oh, so, cool. I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. Humans and foxes have had really close relationships longer than humans and dogs, which I thought was surprising.
Really?
Yeah. Apparently, a grave in Jordan, like a grave from 16,500 years ago, contained a man and his pet fox. And that's 4,000 years older than the first domesticated dog burial.
Maybe it was one of those situations where they started with foxes and they're like, these guys are rowdy. Like,
yeah. Absolutely.
They're using their powers for evil. Like, let's try these wolves over here. They seem to be really food motivated.
Probably, yeah, because foxes are a lot like they have a different personality. Although, one of my favorite things, so in Russia, they did a domestication experiment with foxes. So they bred the friendliest with the friendly and the meanest with the meanest to see, what would happen. And the friendliest of friendlies started to get more and more dog-like traits. Their ears started to droop. They started to get spots. And they started to become really friendly. So they essentially domesticated the fox, but that would take a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. So the spots bit, is that an indication of domestication? Or
that's what they think that they found, which is like why a lot of cows have spots and think like apparently there must be. So, you know, sometimes genes like will be for more than one thing. They're thinking that some gene that helps with like either friendliness or something like that also just happens to create spots and droopy ears. Which is so cute.
Yeah, this is good to know for any sort of wild animal, you know, exploration I'm going to be doing in my future.
Yeah, well, and also I always thought, man, I would really love a pet fox, but I don't really I'm not an advocate for, you know, like catching a wild animal or the exotic pet trade. However, if the species is already domesticated, I will go to Russia and get myself a domesticated fox.
I'll get the hookup on a domesticated fox and bring it back.
Then I don't have to feel guilty about...
Right.
So yeah, foxes are awesome. They're important predators where they live, make over 40 sounds, very smart, and very prevalent in Japanese culture as well as cultures around the world.
They're cool, man.
Yeah, they are.
That's, I mean, also 40 sounds is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so when they're like, what does the fox say? Well, a lot of different things.
Yeah, actually, that song, all wrong.
Yeah. Oh, and just as a warning, you know, feel free to look up kitsune online, but there is a lot of... Remember how I said that foxes are known to be, like, incredible lovers? Uh-huh. So there's a lot of fan fiction out there.
There's a lot of fox love?
Yeah. Because they're shapeshifters. So, it's like, you know, yeah.
Right. Yeah. The supernatural is alluring, guys. It's okay. It's okay. Well, that's great. Would you like me to move on to my next creature?
Please.
Okay. So this one, a little more, we would say, normally associated with the occult, but I promise to make it interesting.
Okay.
So I love birds, but I also love snakes.
Okay.
I love snakes a lot.
Wow, it's so good that I then mentioned, you know, snake witches.
I know. I really thought, I was like, wow, she's teeing up the next bit really well.
I feel like that happens a lot with this show.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're on the same wavelength.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, snakes in the occult. So I feel like, you know, most religions and cultures have some sort of fascination with snakes. And why wouldn't they? They're cool. And they're kind of weird looking.
I feel like that's most people would be like, because they're evil.
Right. Right. And I mean, generally they get like an undeserved bad rap, right? Thanks, Adam and Eve.
From literally the dawn of time.
Literally, Bible, anything.
Yeah. Any kind of creation story usually is like bad snakes.
And, you know, something I thought was interesting that I don't know if we've talked about before, but they've done studies with like babies. And I believe snakes and spiders are the only two animals, like when they showed baby pictures of them, that they immediately had like a negative reaction to.
I knew that about spiders, but I didn't know that about snakes.
Yeah, I think it's those two. And I might go and double check and make sure I'm not wrong. But I want to say there's something that babies react to.
Yeah, it's probably evolution.
Right. That's what they think, is that, you know, we know to be leery of these creatures.
Yeah.
I don't. I touch them all the time.
Right. I see a snake and I want to hold it.
Yep. Yeah. My poor friends, whenever we go hiking, they know that if I see a snake, as long as it's not venomous, I'm going to be running after it. So,
yeah.
So though they represent evil, cunning, sly, or sneaky, sort of like the fox, but, you know, think snake in the grass or Slytherin. Some view the snake as a symbol of the life cycle, birth, death, rebirth, fertility, trouser snake, protection, and transformation, like shedding of the skin. So before I get into like my main occult snake bit, I need to tell you this fun fact. Snakes and have a hilarious place in Scottish culture. It's their version of Groundhog Day. So apparently in the past, Highlanders would pound the ground with a stick until a serpent emerged. And depending on how the snake behaved, which I can only assume is varying degrees of pissed off,
Right.
they would know how much frost is left in the season. AKA, spring was coming. I was like, what? Why don't we do that? Why do we just hold up
Excuse me.
We Simba a groundhog.
Yeah.
But we don't pound the ground to see if a snake comes out.
Oh my god.
Oh, that'd be a bad day for a snake, I think.
It would be such a rude awakening. Because
Right?
they're also, like, snake version of hibernating.
Yeah, they're brumating.
Yeah.
They're, not doing anything, and they've been rudely awakened.
By pounding on their house.
Right. And they have to go out and see what's going on, and they can't really see.
And they're frigid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's not very kind.
No.
But I've found that the hoodoo people, the hoodoo is not a people, it is a type of, so it sounds similar to voodoo, so I should make this disclaimer now. They're both considered a melding of beliefs. Voodoo is an existing religion.
Yes.
And hoodoo is considered folk magic.
Okay. I came across it while looking for things.
Yeah, and it seems like it's found mostly in the Southeast, so in the Carolinas. There was a lot of information in that area, but it's a lot of the Southeast.
Yeah, I think that, and I think in Central America, like some island culture, kind of like where voodoo is.
Right. So in the late 1800s and early 1900s, occultists started promoting and selling snake rings as symbols of occult powers.
Rings?
And yeah, so to be clear...
I couldn't hear if it was brains or rings, and so I was like, okay, just wanted to clarify.
No!
Snake brains.
They're just braining snakes, and here you go. No, rings, like, the metal kind.
Yes.
And there's this practitioner of hoodoo known as the Black Constable, or John Domingo. He's was from Charleston, South Carolina in the late 1800s. He was known as like a power practitioner of hoodoo and a necromancer known for his curses, and was said to have a serpent ring that was forged along the banks of the Congo River, and that was the source of all of his power.
Cool. Don't piss that guy off.
No. From what I've read about him, he can make your life real nice or really not.
Yeah.
They also seem to use snake skins in quite a variety of their practicing, their magic. So Zora Neale Hurston, who is best known as the author of Their Eyes Were Watching God. I feel like a lot of people in America read that in schooling at some point. She was initiated into hoodoo, and part of that initiation included wrapping snake skins around her body and lying on a couch nude for 3 days so she could have a vision and acceptance from the spirits.
Wow. That's
a long time to be naked on a couch. Yeah. And a lot of snake skins.
A long time to be naked on a couch. Yeah, like, is she allowed to get up to use the bathroom?
Right. Is she eating? I know there was a bit about drinking blood or something out of a chalice. But yeah, I mean, I guess you're going to want to not eat or drink much for 3 days.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Have
and
a
could
vision
be
from
doable.
spirits.
It would be the bathroom thing that would be
right.
questionable.
Yeah. Like, what was their plan for that? Or was it just okay? Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
There's also an item called goofer dust.
It was called what dust?
It's called goofer dust.
Goofer. Okay.
Yeah. It's powder used to cast a spell, usually harmful or death-inducing.
Okay.
Made with snakeskin. And usually, like, I want to say it was like graveyard dirt and some other stuff. But apparently, as time has gone on, they there was likely to be chemicals and other things in it that, would be harm or death-inducing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also pieces of snakeskin were used in poppets as charms or in jars for protection, healing, and luck. And let me tell you, when I was reading about this, you can still get all of those things on the internet.
Oh, I'm sure.
You just do a quick search on Etsy. And I feel like I'm missing a market because I have a lot of snakeskin in jars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So snakes in hoodoo are used for healing, protection, and to curse people. So again, we're running the gamut here.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of refreshing that it's not just negative.
Right. The image of a snake would be carved into conjure sticks to remove curses, evil spirits, and bring healing. They also use serpent's blood to introduce snakes into the human body. A quote from, I think, a practitioner of hoodoo that I found was, extract the blood from a snake by puncturing an artery, feed the liquid blood to the victim in food or drink, and snakes will grow inside of them.
Whoa. That's gross.
Yeah. And then a root worker had said that if you wanted someone to die, tie a piece of their hair around a snake. Then you'd kill the snake, bury it in that person's yard, and because their hair is tied to the snake, they get sick and die.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it took a turn real quick.
Curses are no joke.
Yeah, I know. So, yes, there seems to be a lot of cursing involved, especially with hoodoo and snakes. But as I've said, I'm a big fan. And I have 4 snakes at home. I love freaking people out with them. But I also like debunking snake myths and giving them a positive snake experience.
Yes. Snake experience. I love it. The
Listen,
snake experience.
I'm a sucker for a misunderstood creature.
I am too.
Snakes are, we all know them. They're long, limbless reptiles. They have scales. They're cold-blooded. They're carnivores. They lack eyelids and ear holes and all that good fun stuff. Apparently, there are more than 3,400 species.
Whoa.
And some counts were saying over 3,700, which is it's a big margin of error.
Yeah, it is.
And they can be found on every continent except Antarctica. The internet refers to them as danger noodles or nope ropes.
Yep.
That's the common name. And some cool things about them. And I, like you, I'm only going to scratch the surface.
Yeah.
There's just so much. So they have nostrils, but they actually use their tongue to smell. Basically, they flick their tongue to collect chemicals, retract them, and then deliver those chemicals to the Jacobson's organ on the roof of their mouth. The fork in their tongue helps them smell in 2 different directions at once.
That's one of my favorite snake facts. I think that's so cool.
It's so fascinating. They described it in a couple different places, either smelling in 3D or smelling in stereo.
I tell kids they use their tongue as a GPS.
Oh, that's a cool way to put it. And so my favorite part of snakes, we're just going to go down a little rabbit hole for a minute. Their defensive displays are my favorite thing.
So dramatic.
So funny. So generally speaking, here's my disclaimer. Snakes don't want anything to do with humans.
Yeah.
Okay? We're too big. We have limbs. We're considered predators. So they just want to get away. And we know some of these defense mechanisms, right? Hissing. My ball python hisses exacerbatedly anytime I pick him up. He's just like, ugh, fine. It's a prolonged disgruntled sigh. I find it hilarious. They also flatten out their heads to look threatening. Some say like diamond-shaped venomous snakes or cobras. They also rattle their tails. We know rattlesnakes have actual rattles to do this with, but other snakes, especially small young snakes, in my experience, flick their tails to create a rattle with leaves or other materials on the ground. They also have a gaping open mouth display, which people think of cottonmouths. That's how they got their name. They have that white inner mouth area. But I also picked up this tiny earth snake the other day while I was hiking, and it did the exact same thing.
So cute.
You'd be like, "Ma!" And I was like, "My dude, you're not scaring anyone."
Yeah.
Some snakes, and this is a new fact for me, they slather themselves with blood.
Ew. I've heard, I guess, the hognose can eject some blood. But slather?
There are some other snakes that will straight up with their cloaca, like some blood will come out and they'll just be like, let me soak in this for a minute so you don't eat me.
I'm disgusting.
And I'm glad you mentioned the hognose because they're the most dramatic.
That's my favorite.
They're my favorite. They play dead by rolling over, opening the mouth, flopping out their tongue, and sometimes they musk or urinate on themselves to prove that they're dead. Very dead, do not touch.
Yeah, and like if you flip them over, they'll flip themselves back over.
Right, which kind of like defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
It's like a cat always landing on their feet.
Yeah.
Snake, very dead. Do not roll over. We'll go back. So I can go on for like literal hours about snakes, but I'll stop. And my point here is that snakes are masters of the gray area. They're amazing, versatile creatures that can symbolize life and death, transformation and rebirth, and they may or may not be able to curse you.
Yeah, be kind to snakes because you never know.
Right.
That's what you'll say with all of these animals.
Right. Be kind, you'll never know. Maybe doff your hat.
Probably should. All right. Well, I'm going to move on to my last animal, which I'm so excited to talk about because I learned some crazy stuff. And I've talked about this animal in a previous episode. It's the hyena. And I talked about it with what would you be? I chose to be a hyena. Go back and listen to that episode. So hyenas in the occult, it's a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought it. Like, that's not an animal I think of.
Right, because I'm over here, we don't have hyenas. But apparently, in Africa and Asia, hyenas and the occult are very tied together. So in Africa, many African cultures believe that witches can shapeshift into hyenas. So we're seeing a common in general, witches can usually shapeshift into other things. And it's the animals where they live. And it's usually the negative animals where they live. So hyenas. It's basically the equivalent of our black cat. In that it is the most well-known witch familiar in Africa and Asia. Or at least in Africa. So there was this book written by Robert F. Gray. It's called Witchcraft and Sorcery in East Africa. And he was doing some research and observations of stuff. And he found that the Wembugwe, I hope I'm saying that right, of Tanzania, and then here's his quote, believe every witch possesses one or more hyenas that are branded, which is invisible to our eyes, the brand is, with their mark. And they refer to hyenas as their night cattle, which is such a cool term. Night cattle.
Night cattle.
Another t-shirt.
Don't they have spots? They're probably domesticated.
Right. Yeah. So some people think that all hyenas are marked by witches. Some people say only some of them are. But because that is an invisible mark, you don't know, just like with your magpie. So just don't mess with any hyenas because you just never know. But the crazy thing about their belief is that, or not crazy, the coolest thing, I should say, about it is that they, at regular intervals, all witches of the land ride their hyenas to a prearranged place in the forest for a Saturnalian gathering where they boast of their evil deeds and perform obscene rites.
The visual of a throng of witches riding hyenas.
It's so cool.
Clutch.
And it's very reminiscent to me of like the Lord of the Rings with like the orcs that are riding their wargs because their wargs are like mimicked in the movie. They look like hyenas.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
They basically picture and of course witches are naked. So they're naked.
Oh, obviously.
Riding at full gallop, mounted on a hyena. He says carrying
a lot of bounce.
Yeah. Naked, mounted on a hyena, carrying a flaming torch, which they refuel from time to time from a gourd of hyena butter slung over their shoulder. And you might be thinking, butter? Well, in a lot of witchcraft, you can be cursed through food, and butter happens to be the most severe because it causes leprosy if you're cursed through butter. So witch butter is a bad thing. So a naked witch carrying a tub of butter.
Anything. That's some sneaky stuff right there.
Yeah. So naked witches with butter, flaming torches. And then the Valangi people said that they were naked, sitting backwards, facing over the tail, covered in oil so that if they were caught, they could slip out of people's grasps.
But are they still holding torches? That doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, I don't know. So chances are, if a person encounters a hyena at night, they could be carrying a witch. You don't know. You might not be able to see them because they're invisible. So, what you do, just like with your magpie, there is some ways to kind of get around this.
Oh, good.
So you have to let them know it was unintentional. Like the encounter.
Like,
so,
oh, didn't see you there?
Yeah. I see a hyena. Didn't know you were riding it. Sorry.
Let me squeeze right past you.
So, right. Mind you, you're face to face with a hyena.
Right.
Not a magpie. And so you first have to pick up a fistful of sand, throw it over your shoulder, then spit a little to the right, then a little to the left. Real quick, and then run away. Okay.
Spit to the left.
Yes, to the right. So, that is just one facet. Okay, that's the witchcraft facet.
Okay.
The other one for me is even cooler because I'm so into the whole like shape-shifting thing.
Yeah.
So, whereas Europeans and Americans have werewolves, Africans have hyenas.
Oh, cool.
Which is so cool.
I would rather be a hyena.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So in this is where hyena, like folklore can be found in Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, Tanzania, Morocco. So unlike werewolves, though, you are either, born a were hyena, or you are a hyena disguising yourself as a human. So you could be it could be either one. Okay. And you can transform at will. It's not like I have to transform at the full moon kind of thing.
Okay.
You can just transform whenever you want, which is way cooler. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to wait for a moon.
Right.
It's a Tuesday at 3, I want to be a hyena.
And I want to be a were hyena. Well, in Ethiopia, Sudan, Tanzania, Morocco, they're specifically called Buddhas. I might be saying that wrong. But the legend goes that Eve, like Adam and Eve had 30 children, and God asked to see them. She was a little suspicious of what his intentions were. Fair enough. The Old Testament God was a little scary.
Show me your children.
So she only showed him 15. So because he then turned the other 15 into Buddha, or Bouda. It's Bouda.
Oh, okay.
So then they became these, basically where hyenas are synonymous with the evil eye. So
I see. So God was like, you didn't show me all your kids.
Yep. So those ones that you didn't show me, now they're going to be were hyenas.
Which, like, I mean, I guess it's a curse of sorts,
right?
I don't know. I don't want to be one of those kids.
There's only a couple, like, basically the best way to tell if someone is a were hyena is that there is a lingering smell of rotting flesh around that person. So, if you smell like a dead body, then you might be a were hyena.
If you smell really bad, I'm going to have suspicions.
Yeah. In Somalia, you can transform yourself with a magic stick at sundown. In Sudan, were hyenas are a little more violent in that they specifically attack lovers after dark. In Morocco, were hyenas are believed to transform every night after sunset and return to human form at dawn. And then the last interesting thing about were hyenas that I found, and again, as I said at the beginning, a lot of these things are very tied with, like, the other and ostracizing people. Mm-hmm. So the term of a Buddha or Bouda became synonymous with the lower uneducated artisan class and blacksmiths in particular. So if you were a blacksmith, you're just a were hyena. And that belief is still thought today. There are still many culture, like, sections in Africa where, like, blacksmiths not cool. Like, you need them, but, like, don't mess with them. I was gonna say
they're usually a key component of different, communities and cultures.
But fun fact, blacksmiths originally in early Africa were often Jewish.
Okay.
And so this was just another way of seeing them as different or taboo
or othering. Right.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating.
That's so fascinating.
that was just Africa. Real quick, Asia. In India, hyenas are believed to be the horses of witches. So again, riding.
Yeah.
And this is terrifying. So as the hyena comes upon a corpse and eats it, the witch feeds on the soul.
Oh.
So, yeah. Don't want to be caught out in India. And a lot of people might not think of hyenas being in India, but they are. Hyenas are both Africa and Asia.
Yeah, I didn't know that The Lion King really skewed my perception of where hyenas are.
There's actually a whole paper written by a guy on how The Lion King was horribly detrimental to hyenas.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's actually called, like, the Lion King effect, I think.
Interesting. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, because it's fascinating, like, how it really hurt our perception of what they are. And then in the Middle East, hyenas are believed to be able to put a spell on people in order to drag them back to their cave and eat them alive.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, bad rap. Bad rap. I would argue that there might be no species of mammal more hated than a hyena around the world because it's so many places that it's not liked.
I would agree with that.
Even from America, people don't like hyenas. That right from the Lion King, the version of in Europe in the medieval times, they thought that hyenas ate corpses, like grave robbed, like went to graveyards to dig up people and eat them. So
poor hyenas.
Yeah, they're seen as murderous, sneaky, cowardly, vicious, eaters of the dead, and sexually deviant. That's a big thing amongst them too, being sexually deviant. Again, there's some very common themes running through all of these animals.
Absolutely.
Very little is seen in them that's positive. But they are amazing animals. And I did mention a lot of it in that past episode where I said I would be one, but just a little bit. There are 3 species of hyenas, spotted, brown, and striped. They're not just scavengers, which most people think of them as. They're actually really efficient hunters. And like 2/3 to 90% of what they eat, they hunt and kill. So really they're just scavenging when they need to.
Right.
They're extremely intelligent. I didn't know this before today. They actually can outperform chimpanzees in group problem solving.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's fascinating.
Because they have extremely socially complex lives. And so they are made to work together better than chimpanzees. They're also able to break into houses and cars. So that's cool.
They don't need locks.
Right. So very smart. They can crack bones that are up to 2.5 inches thick because they have really strong jaws.
Oh, wow.
They're matriarchal, which is, I love
Always
that.
A win. Yeah.
Yes. And they're insane genitals, which we talked about in the past episode. Females have a pseudopenis. Their clitoris is so enlarged, it is a pseudopenis, which is both a blessing and a curse.
Right.
I won't talk about it too much. Go back and listen to our past episode.
Please do.
But
it's worth it.
Amazing animals. So hated, but very necessary. They're hunters, just like lions. They're predators. Right. They're scavengers and help make sure that there isn't disease just hanging around. They're really cool, and they're really good mothers. Like, they're awesome. They're awesome. They just, unfortunately, are associated very strongly with the negative aspects of the occult.
No, I was going to say, they're super cool. You have inspired me to learn more about them.
Yeah, they're really cool. And so, Laura, I'm trying to tell people about hyenas.
She doesn't like them.
Yeah, she's like, I don't care. So, with all the animals that we talked about today, you can see that they are all carnivores or scavengers or both. They all have some aspect of being associated with, like, sexual deviancy or sneakiness or cunning. A lot of them are nocturnal. So throughout history, we as humans, when we're afraid of an animal, we then just immediately are like, evil.
Evil, so maybe witches.
Yeah, probably witches. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's just a matter of, taking another look at animals and seeing them not in the other aspect or not in the, just because they come out at night and can eat meat and can be scary doesn't mean they don't have a purpose.
Absolutely.
and aren't completely badass.
Right. Well said.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we got for you today. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, this was great. I had such a fun time.
Yeah, I hope everyone has fun listening to it. It's our way of celebrating our Halloween.
Yes. Tell us what your favorite animal is after you give it a listen.
Or if
We'd
you
love to
have
hear from
any
you.
that you're like, oh, I wish they would have mentioned this. I want to hear about some other cool occult animals.
Yes, please.
Especially from other
those of you who
cultures.
have read those books.
Yeah. All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody, and tune in next week for our next episode.
See ya.